Well, as a lot of you guys will know, I've been spending loads of time feeder fishing recently, and I feel I've neglected the pole a little bit. So I thought I'd pop along to Lakeview near Melton Mowbray, get the jam roll out, see if I can catch some fish, and I'm having a brilliant day. I've had loads of fish, fishing really tight across, really shallow water. That's probably one of the smaller fish I've had today, and I'll just show you how I'm catching my fish today. Beautiful little fish. Well, first thing you'll notice, folks, is the depth of the rig. I'm fishing really shallow today. I found a beautiful depth across the far side, just in a little tiny gap in amongst the reeds there. And the reason I'm fishing so shallow is simple. The fish want to be in that depth. As you can see, it's a beautiful day today. The sun's out, nice high temperatures. Every woman on the way here seems to be wearing a really short skirt, and when them women are out wearing them short skirts, the fish want to be in really shallow water. So really short rig, probably about 18 inches deep, and I've plumbed up to actually find that depth. That's the shallowest depth in this swim across that far side, so about 18 inches deep is a really good starting point. Let's talk about the components of the rig. So elastic wise, I've gone for a pink shock core. Really soft elastic. I've got it on a puller kit. That means that if I do hook a bigger fish, I can strip a bit out. But you know, I've caught some little tiny F1s today, and you need them to pull a little bit of elastic out, but you need some grunt there for some bigger fish. That's why I've got it on the puller kit. The other bonus of having really soft elastic in shallow water is when I strike, each fish should come out of the swim with as little commotion as possible. So what I want to do is strike, a little bit of elastic comes out, and I can guide the fish out nicely, you know, as quietly as possible. So that's why I like to use a nice soft elastic. You might notice there, really short line between pole tip and float, and that's not so the fish can hook themselves. You know, the odd one might do that, but that's purely because it's a nice still calm day today. Pole control's really easy, and I want to push my rig as tight to the far side as possible without catching any overhanging reeds. So that's why there's that little short line. It's probably 4 inch of line there between pole tip and float. The main line's 018, hook length is 012. I've got a size 16, obviously a barbless hook on there. The hook length is 4 inches. The reason it's so short is because I want to get the weight, the main bulk of the weight of the rig, as close to the hook as possible, because that will keep the hook bait as still as possible. You know, in theory, we're going to have quite a few fish over there in that shallow water, and we don't want all those tails and fins moving the hook bait around. Obviously, that's not going to look natural to the fish. Talking about the float, I've got a little midi float on there. Really nice, neat, compact float. I like a really stubby style of body when I'm fishing across in shallow water. That means the float can be small, and I feel that compact body helps when I'm using, you know, bulks of weight close to the hook. So that's just a little Mudline float there, and then it's shotted with slot shot. I've got number 8s there, 4 number 8 slot shot, and then I've just got a couple of little trimming shot just above there. Just so I might have to pick one of those off or add one a bit later. That's just to fine tune the rig. So as you can see, a really direct rig, and the bulk is there literally just as a bait delivery system and to hold the bait really stable in what hopefully is a mountain of fish over that far side. Well, we really are having a good day. While I play this fish, I'll talk to you about my bait selections for today. As always, I like to keep things really simple, so I've got 2 baits on my side tray. Ground bait, and I'm actually using milled expander today. The amino black milled expander, and maggots. Maggots of hook bait, obviously ground bait is feed. I've got enough maggots to feed as well, but the main feed is going to be that ground bait. And obviously, because we're in shallow water, you know, it's not a problem to feed ground bait. Trouble with feeding ground bait in deep water is obviously the fish want to come up, they want to intercept the bait as it falls, you get loads of line bites, and it just becomes a real problem. But in shallow water, it's not so much of a problem. And it does form a real nice sort of base to fish over, really attractive base as well. And you can see today, obviously the fish are liking it. So, beautiful little fish, probably 2.5, 3 pound, 2.5 pound I'd give him. So there's 2 ways of feeding. First of all, we've got little pole mounted pot. Obviously fill your bait, fill the pot up, ship out, tap your bait in over the top, get your bite. Great for catching fish really fast, great for shallow water. But sometimes the problem is you end up fishing a bit too fast. It's hard to regulate yourself when you've got a little pot on the end of your pole. So you'll put a bit of bait in, the fish come into the swim really quickly. You've not even presented your hook bait yet, and by the time you're presenting your hook bait, because you're doing it so fast, your bait hasn't settled, you get a line bite, you foul up the fish, you're out of your rhythm, and just everything gets messed up. So quite often when I'm in sort of this situation where we're catching quite a few fish, getting a few fish in the peg, I like to feed with the big pot. It's harder work, but you get better rewards. So I'll feed the same amount. You don't have to fill the big pot, just feed a pinch of ground bait in the big pot, ship over, pot it in, come back, bait my rig up, ship across. And because that process takes a little bit more time, by the time I present my actual baited rig, that ground bait's settled on the bottom, everything's calmed down in the peg. I should hook my first fish in the mouth, hook it properly, and everything works really smoothly. So that's the theory anyway. At the minute, I'm fishing with a little pot, you know, and it's working all right. There's not millions of fish there at the minute, but if my peg did become solid, I'd switch to this big pot, slow things down a little bit more. On plumbing up, obviously, I want everything to be perfect. So plumbing up, found a few reeds, found the odd little root that's on the bottom. So what I've done is I've got my little reed cutter. It's literally two shaving blades. As you can see, I don't use any shaving blades, so I'll use them for fishing. Put a little attachment on them, screw it onto my cupping kit, and I've had a bit of mess around on the far side. I've dragged the bottom to try and clear as many reeds out as possible, as many roots out as possible, and I've had a flick around against the reeds just to clear away any little reeds that was overhanging, just to make my life a little bit easier. And then on plumbing up, I'm looking for a flat area. The pegs here at Lakeview tend to be really steep on the shelves. The shelves seem to have no flat areas on them whatsoever, but if I can just find a little area, even if it's the size of a saucer, you know, that sort of size, that I can present a rig on and feel confident that my hook bait's fishing well, that'll do me. And that's what I found across there. I've got a little area, it's probably only sort of like 4 inches wide, that I can present a hook bait on. It's reasonably flat. I know that my loose feed is going to, you know, disperse over a wider area, but as long as I can present my hook bait on that little tiny flat area, I'm really confident of getting a bite. So I've got a few fish feeding over there, so I'll try and talk you through the process of catching one. We'll see if we can catch one in real time. So, best hook bait, 3 dead red maggots, really visible. You know, fish can pick that out over there when there's ground bait wafting all over the peg. It'll really sort of see that in the swim. Filling the little pot with ground bait, loose ground bait. I've mixed the ground bait really damp. Obviously pushed it through a riddle, but it's so damp, so, you know, in theory it's quite heavy. It'll sit on the bottom a little bit more than a drier mix. So I've pushed it into the pot. Importantly, I've not rammed it in, because when I get over there, I don't want to be bashing the pole for it to release. I just want to, you know, bash it, there you go, a couple of times and it's out. And then importantly, I'm bringing my rig back and I'm pushing my rig up the shelf. The shelves are really steep here, and if you don't do that, you just don't get your rig to settle right. And obviously, the rig is just touching the bottom. There we go, fish straight away. Not a massive fish, but I guess it shows how effective and how quickly they're coming to this bait. Like I say, only a small fish, but little F1. And I guess that's why we're using soft elastic as well, because there's plenty of fish like that around. See if we can do it again. See if we can go for 2 in 2, shall we? So 3 red maggots on. 3 red maggots, a little bit of bait in the pot, not ramming it in. Gently ship across. Obviously I've got a far bank marker. I know exactly where I'm fishing. Tap the bait in. Push the rig up the shelf. And I just like to hold the float out a couple of inches, lower the last bit in. and you can see, hopefully, there you go, straight away, 2 in 2. What about that, folks? Hopefully you can see when I'm striking. I'm not striking like Zorro either, so obviously a little tiny strike. If I strike like a maniac, obviously the float's going to end up in the reeds above me, so you just need to strike nice and gently. And obviously you set the hook no problem. Another little tiny fish, but I'm taking that 2 in 2. I'm pleased with myself. I'm not going to go for the hat trick. I'm going to carry on, see if I can catch some bigger boys. Well, folks, the eagle-eyed amongst you will know I've taken that little pot off the end of the pole. I've started big potting ground bait across, probably a quarter of a big pot of ground bait after each fish. And who'd have thought it, the more you feed, the bigger the fish. Classic really, once the water gets warm. And these fish, these carp, have muscled out those little tiny F1s. And they're proper fish as well, beautiful fish. Sort of fully scaled, loads of them are fully scaled mirror carp. And I tell you what, this is a cracking fish. Let me hold him up. A beautiful fish. Let me see his best side. So that looks pretty good. Look at that. £8, £7, £8. Cracking fish. 18 inches of water. The simplest of baits. And I think that is a brilliant way to end the session. If you like watching videos like this, click subscribe, helps me out massively. You'll get first dibs on any new video. There's loads of videos on my channel, feeder fishing, float fishing, pole fishing, you name it, it's there.